Good morning, friend. Welcome back to Locally Raised. This morning I'm gathering some eggs to make a quiche because tomorrow I'm hosting a brunch. I have to say that I felt a little out of step this morning filming these colorful eggs and this time with my son, while so much of what I'm seeing on YouTube shows people picking up the pieces of their lives after Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton, people preparing food stores in the midst of uncertainty in the future, and just knowing that there's so much struggle in the world right now, so much global conflict, and like I said, uncertainty. But I have to remind myself this morning that all of these things are beyond my sphere of control. I can be helpful in some small ways. I can donate money to hurricane relief efforts. And of course, I can do small things to make sure that my family has some systems in place in case of disaster. I think these chickens would be something I'd be very grateful for if for some reason grocery shelves weren't as well stocked as they normally are. But beyond that, the best thing I can do is cultivate peace and seek community and live our daily lives well. So I hope that seeing some peaceful images of making quiche and having brunch are peaceful to you this morning as well. And I invite you to join me for a slow morning. The brunch I'm hosting is tomorrow. I've already made some muffins last week and frozen them. So today I'm making the crust for the quiche, and I'll also mix up the filling for the quiche and keep that in the fridge. That way tomorrow morning I'm just putting things together and putting them in the oven. I really don't like feeling rushed and frenzied as people are about to come over. So I should be able to take a slow and calm morning tomorrow and just enjoy having people come. This pie crust recipe is one of my favorites. My grandma taught me to make pie crust, so I used her techniques, but I like this recipe. I was so surprised the first time I made a pie crust to discover that it's just flour, water, salt, fat. That's what makes it so good. And when you have something with such simple ingredients, you want to make sure they're good ones. So I like using this Kerrygold butter. The recipe calls for having it cut into pieces so that it's easy to work into the dry ingredients. So I quarter the stick and then slice it up. For the fat, this recipe uses half lard and half butter. I really like the flavor of the butter in there and the flakiness that you get from combining butter and lard together. So this one works well for me. I've had this lard in the fridge since last Thanksgiving. It can last a long time. I originally learned to make pie crusts with my hands, but I just bought my first pastry cutter. So I thought I'd give it a try here, and it turns out I don't have the patience to learn how to use this right now. I'm sure some of you watching know how to use this much better than I do. I decided to stick with what I know, which is doing this by hand. So I'm just gently breaking up the bits of lard and butter here with my fingers. The idea is to incorporate them into the flour while not pressing anything hard or overworking it. I want to make sure that they get to the point where all the little lumps of fat in here are about pea-sized. At that point, I'm ready to add the last ingredient, which is ice water. I'm starting off with 4 tablespoons, and then I'll just work that into the dough and add 1 more tablespoon at a time until I reach the point where the dough holds together but isn't overly sticky. Sometimes that takes 8 tablespoons. Today it took 6, I believe. My crust has chilled in the oven for a little over 2 hours. I'm ready to roll it out. I'm just going to lay down a little flour. Well, let's get these up first. A little on my rolling pin too. It's definitely pretty firm after that time in the fridge. It's funny making a pie crust for a breakfast that I'm going to have with Grandma, because my grandma is the pie crust maker in our family. She's the one that taught me to make crusts. I'm making this slightly differently than she taught me. She taught me to make a lard crust, so this is a butter and lard crust. But all the technique I learned from her, so I hope it's up to snuff. I'm sure it will be. And she's gracious, so even if it's not, I don't think she'd say anything. It's seeming a little dry. It seemed like a moist dough to me before it went into the fridge, but now it's dried out a bit. I used 6 tablespoons of water, so maybe 7 would have been better. Some nice flecks of butter in there. I like seeing that. It's holding together really nicely though. Moving it into the pie dish is always a delicate process, so I'm just going to wrap it around and then unroll it. I love the feeling of a good pie crust. It's kind of smooth and pliable. You can see I'm a little short on crust here. Have a lot extra here. This often happens to me. I'm sure I'll get better at this over time, but for now, I just take off a little extra and patch it in. No big deal. Then I'm just going to take the extra and kind of fold it back in. And then I'm going to shape this. So I just do one finger and crimp around it. The crust is ready. I'm going to wrap this in cling wrap and put it in the fridge so it'll be ready for tomorrow morning, and I can start to bake it before people arrive. Now I'm going to put together the quiche filling, and that'll go in the fridge in cling wrap too, and then I can just throw it all together in the morning and I'll have a light morning. My onions have caramelized, so now it's time to make the quiche filling. These are straight from the coop. Often eggs come out of the coop kind of dirty, but I changed the nesting box bedding yesterday. So clean bedding made for clean eggs. Saves me a step. I'm just putting 4 eggs in here. They're so beautiful. It's been, I think, 2 months now since my chickens started laying, and this is my first time having chickens, so the excitement is still new for me. I don't take it for granted that I have these great eggs. To the 4 eggs, I'm adding a 1/2 cup milk. This is from a nearby farmer. I love buying milk from him and knowing that when I buy milk, the money is going straight to him and his family. It's one of my favorite benefits of buying local. You get good things, but also you get to put into the local economy. So that was half a cup of heavy cream. Now I need salt and pepper. I'm adding a 1/4 teaspoon salt. Just got this shipment of Redmond real salt yesterday. I had run out. Ooh, I keep doing that. I had run out and I missed it. This is definitely better tasting to me than what I can get at the grocery store. And then it calls for a 1/4 teaspoon pepper. I'm just gonna crank this a little bit and call it good. And here the recipe calls for whisking in a mixer. I just don't want to get another piece of equipment dirty. Next, the recipe calls for a cup of cheese. I often like using 2 different kinds of cheese when I cook. I think you just get more interesting flavor. I told you I'm a precise baker, not a precise cook. So a cup for me is going to be 2 good handfuls. That's handful number 1. That was mozzarella. And then I'm going to use a Fiesta blend for the second handful. This is actually frozen, but remember I'm going to leave this in the fridge overnight. So I'm not worried about the fact that it's frozen. I can count on this thawing overnight. And I can still mix it in. It breaks up really easily. Next is the fun part. 2 cups of add-ins. So whatever you want can go in here. I want this to be a bacon and caramelized onion because that's delicious. Who wouldn't want that? I'm going to make another quiche, a crustless one that I'll do, spinach and feta. But this one's going to be the treatier one. So let me get my bacon. I'm just going to put in this whole pack of bacon pieces. And then I'm ready for my caramelized onions. Caramelized onions are going in. I had planned to eat the crustless quiche myself because I've been staying away from gluten, but I'm having some regrets now. The caramelized onion and bacon definitely looks like it's going to be the best thing on the table.
Going to be for dinner. Do we have to eat it?
No. It's for, remember I told you I'm having great grandma over?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's for having her over. So don't worry, it's all egg. You're not missing out. Yes, yes.
Did you use 2 gallons of eggs?
No, just 4. And I'm covering this up. It's going to go into the fridge for tomorrow. All right, it's the morning of the brunch. I've just pulled my crust out of the fridge, so it's not been baked at all. I'm preheating the oven to 375, and I'm just going to prepare this to go in for the partial blind bake. So I've got some parchment paper here. I'm tracing the bottom. And I'll cut this out. And that'll fit perfectly in here. And then I don't have pie weights, but that's not a problem. I'm using dried black beans, any kind of dried bean or pasta macaroni. It's ready for the oven. This morning's brunch includes 4 generations of women, from my grandma to my mom to myself and some of my kids. So it's really nice in the midst of a busy week to just take time to slow down and take time to eat together. I find it very grounding to spend time on tangible things, especially in times of uncertainty. And so gardening and cooking and eating and being with others provides me with all of that sense of presence and of peace. I didn't film the brunch because I don't want people to be afraid that they could be filmed anytime they come over to my house. I want to respect my guests. But it was a lovely spread. Everybody brought a little bit of something, and that brings together a meal pretty quickly. And so it was just a nice chance to be together and to eat good things. Thanks for spending this time with me today. I wish you all the best in whatever you're working on this week, and be sure to like, share, and subscribe if you want to join me for more projects like this. I look forward to sharing more with you next week. Until then, bye.